It was raining again in the morning. I wasn't surprised by it anymore. I was used to it. I would have been surprised if the sun had been shining when I woke up in the morning. It would have been warm and pleasant. But now everything is normal. You put on your rain gear and set off prepared to get wet and cold. It's no different in Norway. The weather is constantly changing, so every morning when it's raining, you set off knowing that at some point later, the clouds will clear and the rain will stop, or not. Later, the whole day was like that. It was raining, then the sun was shining. The temperature jumped from +10, about 50 degrees Fahrenheit, to 18, about 64.4 degrees Fahrenheit, then dropped to 12, about 53.6 degrees Fahrenheit, and rose again to 15, about 59 degrees Fahrenheit. Such a complete weather chaos. I was riding towards the Norwegian capital Oslo, but I also planned to visit a few places on the way. The first point I stopped at was another waterfall, Lake Foss. It is quite popular among tourists because it is located right next to a busy road. Water spray here splashes everyone who just walks or drives on the road. By the way, did I mention that such a huge mass of falling water also creates incredible air currents? The closer you get to the waterfall, the stronger the wind blows. Those Norwegian waterfalls are mind-blowing. The second place on my list of places to visit that day was the old wooden church. Built in 1275, it still stands today with all the paintings on the wooden ceiling and walls inside. In fact, the decorations are mainly from the 17th century, but the crucifix, which is located above the entrance to the choir, is dated to 1250. This crucifix was believed to have healing powers, and every Jonsok, 6th of July. After the Julian calendar, the crucifix would sweat, and it was this sweat which could heal. Roldal was one of the most important sites for pilgrimage in Norway, and this continued until 1835, when it was eventually stopped by that time, dean. It is one of the remaining 28 stave churches in Norway. In the Middle Ages, there were around 900 or more. The church is a preserved historic museum, but it is still a regularly used parish church that holds regularly scheduled worship services twice a month. The rain stopped on the way, so I decided to take off the drone as soon as I found a suitable place. Soon, I arrived at a place unlike any I had been before. On one side of the road were lakes, and behind them low mountains covered with snow rose into the sky. That was not very unusual. But on the other side of the road, harsh rocks covered with shards, furrowed by streams and ravines, looked at me. It seemed that no human foot had ever set here before. This, of course, is not true, but this is at least the impression I had at that time. I was in the southern part of Norway, and the landscape looked like it was in the harsh and inaccessible north. As I approached the Norwegian capital Oslo, the number of cars increased, the roads widened, the tunnels also increased, and speeds increased everywhere. Finally, I entered Oslo on a highway with a maximum speed of 100 kilometers per hour. That's a lot by Norwegian standards. The traffic here is intense. There are a lot of cars. It is good that in Oslo motorcycles can use bus lanes. By the way, compared to how I had a good time crossing the Swedish capital Stockholm at the beginning of the trip, everything was much more complicated in Oslo, and not only because of the intense traffic. It took me some time to understand the road markings, to understand how everything works on the road. Finally, when I reached the Norwegian capital, I had a day off from riding a motorcycle. My plan was to explore Oslo. The center of Oslo seemed to me to be contemporary, modern, and convenient to live in. There is not much antiquity and history there, a former fortress, a royal palace. That's all there is to history. Neither one nor the other personally impressed me. The public transport system in Oslo is excellent, so coming from districts further from the center is not a problem. And in the center itself, you can walk everywhere on foot. A one-time public transport ticket valid for an hour, valid on trams, buses and the metro, costs 44 krona. At the exchange rate on the day I visited Oslo, 3.73 euros. Expensive, but convenient. Despite the fact that the architecture here is mainly modern, there are many places to visit. Everyone can choose according to their own taste. My recommendations: Gustav Vigeland Sculpture Park for free, Edvard Munch Museum not very cheap. An adult ticket costs 220 Norwegian kroner, which was 18,558 euros when I was in Oslo, Aker Brygge district. Here are not only popular restaurants, a pier with beautiful views, from where high-speed boats take tourists around the Oslo fjord, many beautiful sculptures, but also the Nobel Peace Center with an exhibition of the famous prize, and a museum of modern art. After spending a day in Oslo, I got back on my motorbike. 2 days later, I had a ferry ticket to go home, so I headed for Sweden. The last day on Norwegian roads started with a temperature of 18 degrees, 64.4 degrees Fahrenheit, and a bright sun. I even needed dark glasses. The highways around Oslo are clogged with cars. Traffic doesn't stop, but car to car, the traffic is very intense. A highway leads from Oslo to the Swedish side, where the speed limit increases to 110 kilometers per hour in some places. Well, an official speed limit that I have never seen in Norway before. The highway was full of cars all the way to the Swedish border, and riding on the highway was boring. So I briefly turned off to the side roads. I rode slower but more calmly and enjoyed the views. Later, however, I returned to the highway. The road was planned to be long, there was no time to stare. After crossing the Swedish border, I turned off the highway again onto the side roads. At one point, I met several local motorcyclists who were interested in my Lithuanian license plates. "Are you going to Norway?" one of them asked. Hearing that I was already leaving Norway, he asked where I had been and what I had seen. "Did you get a lot of rain in Norway?" he asked. Hearing that it had rained almost every day for 2.5 weeks, the Swede just quietly sneered. "I guess they have some kind of joke about Norwegian weather here in Sweden." "Oh buddy, if you only knew how much rain I got in your Sweden a few hours after our conversation." While driving on Swedish roads, the traffic suddenly stopped completely at some point. I felt stuck in a huge traffic jam. The navigation informed me that the traffic was stopped due to an accident ahead. I saw that the entire road was turning into red, and the navigation indicated that I could bypass the obstacle by taking the forest roads. The forest road was quite beautiful, steep, winding and a bit slippery after the rain. But it was possible to ride carefully. At the end of the road on a fairly steep slope, I suddenly saw a DHL courier bus standing in front of me. It got stuck because it met a car driving in front, which was pulling a trailer with horses. On the narrow forest road, both cars simply could not pass. The car with the trailer had just turned onto this road. So after a while of calm, Nordic-style explanation of the situation, the driver of the car with horses began to maneuver and, with the entire trailer in reverse, successfully managed to return to a more serious road. That day, I drove 525 kilometers, first on Norwegian and then on Swedish roads. The weather was not bad all day. At first, the sun was shining, then, in places, it rained lightly. But that rain was not heavy. The worst started a few dozen kilometers before the place to sleep. At first it was dripping a little, but then someone in the sky turned on the tap and all the water from above poured down on me. If only that Swede who made fun of the Norwegian weather had been there, what would he have said now? But you know what? The next morning was perfect. It was the weather I had been missing all along the trip. Plus 20, about 68 degrees Fahrenheit, sunny. The wind started to pick up again in the afternoon, but since there wasn't much riding that day, it didn't really bother me. I started off in the morning without rushing, because I had plenty of time. I reached the Karlskrona Maritime Museum calmly after noon. In fact, it's not really a maritime museum, but rather a museum of the history of the Swedish Navy. The exhibition presents the history of the Swedish Navy from the time it became powerful in the 16th century to the present day. The Swedish military also shows what it uses today. The biggest tourist attraction in this museum is the submarines. There are long lines to get into them because everyone wants to see what everything looks like inside. I spent 3 hours at the museum and still had time. I took my time, stopping here and there to take selfies. In the evening, I made it to the port of Karlshamn. From here, I took the ferry to the Lithuanian port of Klaipėda. And so, without realizing it, my journey was coming to an end. In total, I covered 6,755 kilometers in 3 weeks, from my home to Nordkapp, 2,384 kilometers. After having reached Nordkapp, I headed south and visited many beautiful and interesting places, including the Lofoten archipelago. The road to Nordkapp is not easy in general. The weather conditions in the north are constantly changing and changing very quickly. Therefore, when traveling by motorcycle, you need to be prepared and have warm additional layers, waterproof clothing, and rain gloves. You need to be prepared not only for rain or cold, but also for strong winds, which can be extremely difficult to fight. On those narrow, winding roads that run along the edges of abysses, it sometimes seemed that the wind was trying to blow the motorcycle with the entire rider off the road. And plus, there are a lot of reindeer grazing next to the road. Sometimes those reindeer even come out onto the road. Therefore, the driver needs 100% concentration. Generally speaking, driving on Norwegian roads, as in all of Scandinavia, is quite safe. First of all, other drivers look out for each other. I kept thinking that you are more likely to get into an accident here because of your own mistake than because of another driver's fault. For a motorcyclist, and probably not only him, one of the biggest dangers is to stare at the scenery around you, which would make it very easy to do some nonsense. Norway is an incredibly beautiful country, so the possibility of such an accident there seems quite real to me. Norway is a large country where from the southernmost point to the northernmost point in a straight line there is more than 1,700 kilometers. Therefore, if you are planning to travel here someday, prepare well for it. Would I travel to Norway again? Of course. Maybe not right away, not in a year, because there are places I haven't been to yet, and there are ideas about where I should still travel. But if the opportunity arose, and the circumstances were right, I would definitely travel around this wonderful country again. There are still so many places left unseen and unvisited. By the way, even after returning to Lithuania, the weather conditions were not kind. From the port of Klaipėda, where the ferry arrived, to the capital Vilnius, where I live, there are 300 boring kilometers on the highway. And the wind blew the motorcycle all that way. And the second part of the road, I was soaked by rain. The last 100 kilometers I got heavy rain. I rode and convinced myself that I was used to it. After all, it rained every day in Norway. That's how I reached home, on the highway, through strong winds and heavy rain.